Let's take a look at what we're working with for the Street Machine group build. Now, I actually have two of these kits. This one, the box is kind of crumpled up, but the contents inside it are just fine. So that's the one I'm going to build. If I can get the box lid off, I even just tore out the side. No big deal. All right. 69 Chevy Chevelle SS. Second generation. All right. Put this down lower. All right. Color callouts look pretty basic. Exterior color is your choice, obviously. I'll use internet photos that I find to help me decide what color to settle on and what kind of street machine options I want to do to it. And this is something I really like about the Revell stuff. They actually identify what all the pieces are. You know, if you're not a car buff, if you don't know all the parts of a vehicle, and you're looking at this stuff going, man, what is that? This points it out. This tells you everything in there. That's kind of cool. I mean, I'm not that ignorant. I know most everything. But, you know, some things you look at them and you go, I just don't know what that is. But it'll tell you. Sweet. And more on this page. Very nice. Engine is basic. I am more than likely, actually I am using an aftermarket engine for this. Something a little more hopped up. Plus, I don't know. I like the detail of the 3D printed engines that you can get. You know, the kit engines aren't bad, but things like valve covers and whatnot, the edges of things just aren't as crisp as what you get when you buy a 3D printed part. So I would call the details soft, you know, so wherever there should be a sharp straight edge, sometimes it's a little bit rounded over. But when you get 3D, I mean, that stuff is just like absolute miniature. It's awesome. And if you haven't worked with 3D printed stuff yet, there's several YouTube videos that cover how to glue this stuff together. You need to check it out and give it a chance. It's definitely worth the extra coin if you really want to make a good looking vehicle. All right, moving on. Chassis, drive shaft. I think that's a drive. No, what is? Oh, that's probably steering, huh? Center console, interior, seat belts. All right. Seats and seat belts. More dash, firewall, battery. I am not going to be opening the doors on this one, even though maybe I should, just to stay in the practice of doing it and get better at doing it. But in the interest of not going too long on this build, I am not going to do that this time. So it looks like it's going to be a fairly straightforward build. Shouldn't be too many surprises. You know, this is where I may have to start scratch doing some things, scratch building. All right, those look like slap bars there. And shocks, but you know, depending on the stance you're looking for, you may have to modify the shocks and where the axle sits. So that'll be some mock-up time. All right, all the windows appear to go in from the interior side. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Carefully align parts 150 and 151 to the body to ensure a proper fit with part 119. All right. I think that's a good reason to dry fit everything before we do any paint. You know, we'll cut things off the sprue, clean them up that way, but before we apply any glue or paint, we're going to test fit everything and know ahead of time if we have a fit issue with anything that we can correct prior to adding all that glue and paint to it. So when you see something like this, and they're showing attention to it, definitely dry fit stuff before you start gluing it together. All right, and then our back panel. See, I don't know, this one they have in a fairly flat stance. I like the rear end raised on mine. It's just the look that I remember growing up seeing, and I think it makes it look more aggressive that way. You know, that's just me though. Y'all do what you want to do, but that's what we're starting with right there. All right. Huh. Screws. I didn't think this was a curbside. Well, it's not a curbside. It's got an engine in it. I don't know what the screws are for, I guess. I didn't really notice that in the instructions, but we'll find out eventually. Printed rubber tires. Wide oval. Yeah. We'll probably end up doing aftermarket wheels and tires just so we get a wide rear and skinny front look on it. Window glass all looks good. We'll leave it in there. Oh, big stuff. Hood. Let me go ahead and cut this one open. Time to put a new blade in that. Alright, so there is our hood, and that's the center console, sun visors. This is the trim that goes on the lip of the hood here. Not real sure what that, oh, that might be, maybe that's the, oh, that's the panel between the radiator support and the nose of the grill, because this little thing here, that would be your hood catch and latch. Steering column, hood hinges. This is probably another part of the center console right there. Wheel backs. Underside of the hood has the texture for where you would have the I don't know what they call that, the heating insulation or noise deadening insulation. No, let's not put that in there. All right, here's more of our radiator support and firewall, radiator, fan shroud, headers, fan, water pump, engine pieces, parts, front suspension, rear suspension. Yeah, see, this is the part that I may need to modify to get the stance I'm looking for. I don't know. We'll have to look at that closer. And then our chassis. I'm looking at it from the side where I'm standing, looking for any warpage. I don't see anything. It looks pretty straight. There's your distributor. That's the steering battery. That's your cover for your differential. Exhaust, drive shaft. Some part of suspension, front suspension, I suppose. Here's your slapper bars and springs. Shock struts. Or shocks, I guess, not struts, shocks. All right. Our interior parts, door panels, don't look bad. They've got molded in speakers, which oddly, and I don't know how accurate that would be, you've got the front door speakers, which aren't even in the door. They're in the side panel in front of the door. But there are no speaker boxes on the rear deck, and I'm not sure how accurate that would be. Seems to me that they would have a couple of speakers back there. Maybe not. I'll have to look. And here's those two pieces that go on that rear end around the quarter panels and the bumper. That's the stuff that we need to really make sure fits well before we apply any glue to anything. And then our seat front and back, and the dash. And it actually has, looks like some kind of molded in, maybe fuel level and a speedometer. But I'm sure there's decals for that. Not bad though. Not bad at all. And then the floor pan. Looks like it might be a little bit soft on the detail here. And I might consider on this one something I have not really done yet, and that is maybe I will add brake lines. We'll add brake lines here and maybe some of the wiring in the engine compartment. There's your pedals, stock, and our chrome tree, which we will strip that and repaint it. You know, these wheels look pretty good, and actually those don't look bad, honestly. If that's the stock wheel versus the sport, they don't look that bad. Carburetor, air cleaner cover, shifter. All right, there's our shifter. We might replace that with a Hurst style shifter, depending on what my 3D engine and transmission looks like. Valve covers, license plates. Yeah, not bad. Now, the decals. Alright, so our seat belts are all decals. Not real sure what these triangular things are without going back to the instructions. I'm not too worried about that right now. We got our SS 386 and the Chevelle SS3. Oh, maybe that's 396. What? Yeah, 396. It's on the box lid. Duh. These probably go on the center caps on the wheels, and these probably go inside of that. Here's your gauges, some underhood details. Not bad. I don't know about the striping, if I'll use any of those. It all depends on the color scheme I decide on and what I find on the interwebs. But, all right. So that's a quick overview of this kit before we start cutting things off the trees and dry fitting said questionable fitment parts. But before I do any of that, I'm going to get on the web and start searching for things that catch my eye. We'll see y'all again in a little bit. So as I typically do, I removed everything from their sprues and cleaned up the edges, all the attachment points where they were attached to the sprue. A little bit of a number 11 X-Acto blade and some sanding sticks. And then I've got them separated roughly into, the different compartments, if you will. So here's our basic chassis and our floor pan. Now, I've actually already begun to glue a few items together. So this cross member here that holds the transmission, that's been glued in. The steering motor, that's been glued in. My seats, front and rear, passenger and driver side seats, the front and back halves are glued together. Now, these haven't been, sanded and cleaned up where they're attached, but where they came off the sprues, those have been cleaned up. This center console even, there's this little piece on the back side here that's been glued in now. Everything else Yeah, I don't think I've glued anything else together. Everything else is still separated, waiting for the build. But I did actually get some paint on the body. Well, not paint, primer. So, and those two pieces at the rear, you know, where they caution you about the fitment, we went ahead and installed those. Now, you know, they're visible, but we don't have a large step in there. And if you look at the real car, that is visible. There's a seam line there that's visible because these are, you know, little parts that were added to flesh out that curvature of the rear end. So unless the car has been a resto mod where they've, you know, shaved all the exterior bumps and blisters, you're gonna see that on the real car. Now, I might still go back in and sand that a little bit and, you know, make it a little less obvious, but the fitment on that is actually really good out of the box. So not much of a concern there really. So next up will be deciding on what I want to do for interior and exterior colors, and then we'll get started on actually assembling this. So stick around for the next update, y'all. Peace and love.